Hi, welcome to day 4 of quarantine. Today, I want to talk to you about the golden ratio of human communication. I want to share with you some insights that came from really my travels and my work. And I want to start, and if you will, walk with me down the streets of Dubai. And this is several years ago. I was in Dubai to work with a series of coaches, and I was training coaches on how to coach in business. And I was working with Ford Motor Company at the time, and they were my client that had sponsored me to come in. And Keiko was kind of the person from Ford Motor Company assigned to take me. And she asked if I had ever been to the souks. And I said, no, it's my first time to Dubai. She goes, oh, you have to go. And so we finished up at about 4 in the afternoon. And that evening, she left her family, which I really appreciate, and took me to the souks. And for an American to see real frankincense, real myrrh, all of the spices and everything it was an amazing experience. The smells, the sights, the sounds. It's something I'll never forget. I can hear it. I can feel it right now as I'm talking to you and relating this story. And as we're walking home, Keiko turned to me and she said, Chris, I loved what you did today, because she watched the whole training that I did. She said, I have 2 kids at home, and we're transferred here in Dubai, and this is away from home for them. How do I help them in school? Can you help me do with my kids what you just did with those coaches and you're doing with the Ford dealers when you work with them? And I said, yeah. I said, let's grab a cup of coffee. So we went and stopped and grabbed a cup of coffee. In this videotape today, I want to share with you the nature of that conversation, because I've had that conversation literally hundreds of times where different clients, when we get done with our work, will say, Chris, I really appreciate this. This is so good, but I have this son, I have a daughter, I have this situation with a spouse. Can we talk about that? And I would say that's been some of the best work that I've ever done. I believe part of the reason I was put on this earth was to help heal families and translate the principles I use in business to help people in their family. So let's talk about what I shared with Keiko that evening over a cup of coffee. And it centers on what I call the golden ratio of human communication. I found 3 different researchers in 3 different fields that each had the same insight, but they came to the insight independently with different populations. The first is Carol Dweck, who is famous for working with children. She turns around inner city schools in Chicago and New York, where she can take the most underprivileged classrooms and they can outperform the wealthiest suburban classrooms. And she does it on this simple principle, getting the kids to focus on efficacy instead of on esteem. We spent so much time on self-esteem and so little time on self-efficacy. So many of you are homeschooling right now. I know you're struggling to figure out what to do or where to go with it. This shift, I think, will help you out. So what she found was when kids would say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at science, I can't spell, she would make them say this one phrase, yet. I'm not good at math yet. I'm not good at spelling yet. I'm not good at science yet. Because what she found was, even at a graduate level at Stanford where she worked, pre-med students, straight A's in junior high, straight A's in high school, get into college, top of the class, go through pre-med, get to organic chemistry, fail. Most of them have what she calls a fixed mindset. If you can't pick it up easy and you can't do it fast, the first time you pick up a bat, you can't swing it well, you're not a good baseball player. The first time that you try to sing and it doesn't come out well, you're just not a good singer. That's a fixed mindset. And they would drop out of med school and move to a different discipline. The kids that had a growth mindset that failed organic chemistry, which many people do, they would say, I just got to try harder. I need to get a tutor. I'm going to find a way to get myself in and really do something different. And lo and behold, they get through. So what she teaches the teachers in these inner city schools and the kids is how to move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. How to go from self-esteem, I want you to love me for who I am and what I do, to self-efficacy. I can do hard things. I can make it through. And so what she found as she was training these kids, that one of the key things that made a difference in helping them know they could do hard things was what was the ratio of positive to negative communication from the primary caregiver or the lead adult, in this case the teacher. And it didn't matter whether they're male or female, that if the ratio of positive to negative communication was 3 or 4 positive to 1 negative, it would by default build efficacy, build psychological resilience. That they were able to take a punch and get back up. They could be in a system that was unjust and unfair and be able to survive. And that, when we looked at what makes really great kids, what makes great results, they can build relationships quickly, make them last over time. They're able to have a sense of psychological resilience. They can take a punch and get back up, because the world is basically unfair and unjust. And they have self-efficacy, not self-esteem, a sense they can do hard things, that they can practice, learn, and go forward. So First, Carol Dweck, working with children, finds that out. Second professor, John Gottman at the University of Washington. In his Love Lab, he has gotten so good at taking care of listening to people and what they do. What he found is that he can videotape you as a couple for 20 minutes, just talking back and forth about an interesting subject like child rearing or parenting or finances or something like that. Something that has grist to it. And he'll code your conversation. At the end of that conversation, he can tell you with 96% accuracy whether you will still be married in 5 years or not. Let that sink in for a minute. 96% accuracy whether you're going to still be married or not. Do you know what the number one distinguishing things is? What is the ratio of positive to negative communication between the spouses as they talk to each other? If that ratio is 5 positive to 1 negative, they will have a long-lasting, deep, intimate relationship. If it's 1 to 1-ish, they'll have an okay relationship, probably stay married, not be super happy or intimate. And if it's more negative than positive, the relationship is going to end in divorce. So here's 2 different disciplines. Now a third discipline. So we've got kids, we've got marriage. Let's take a look at business. Kim Cameron at the University of Michigan in the School of Positive Psychology. He studied businesses that went through a downsizing. Think about what we're doing right now. 85% of businesses that go through a downsizing never come back to their former level of business. 15%, however, not only came back to their former level of business, but they also exceeded it. That's the group he studied. And he wrote a brilliant book called Positive Psychology where he outlines the case studies of what he did. He would videotape managers working with their employees, who would videotape and measure and calculate managers' meetings. One of the key distinctions between those that went down and never came back up and those that came back even stronger. And all of us are looking for that. How do we come back stronger? The ratio of positive to negative communications from the managers to each other and the managers to their employees. As a matter of fact, it was so clear that if the ratio was 3 positive to 1 negative, they would outperform the market by about 20%. If the ratio was 1 to 1, they would perform at about market levels. If the ratio was less than that, if it was 3 or 4 negative to 1, they would underperform the market by 20%. Now, if you never say no, your yes means nothing. Once we got to 8, 9, 10 positives to 1, it had the same detrimental effect as having 10 negatives. There's a golden ratio, a sweet spot, right around 3, 4, or 5 to 1. So here we are, 3 different disciplines, right? I've got here with children, 3 to 1. With marriages, 5 to 1. With businesses, 4 to 1. Can you see that distinction? I call that the golden ratio. If we are going to build human beings that are able to build and form relationships quickly, that are able to have psychological resilience and can take a punch and get back up, they can deal with a world that is unfair and unjust and still produce outcomes for themselves, their families, and the people they love. And that we can go ahead and have this sense of self-efficacy, that we can do hard things, that just because I can't do it now, yet, I'm not good at math yet. I'm not good at homeschooling my kids yet. I'm not good at really being patient with my spouse yet. If you just put in that yet, it starts to flip you automatically into this growth mindset. I encourage you, when you finish this tape, go Google Carol Dweck, Google self-efficacy. Check up in Wikipedia and look at John Gottman. Grab his book, The 7 Principles of a Happy Marriage. It's amazing. It will change your life. Let's go back to Keiko. So we're sitting in the coffee shop and I share with her all this information and we go into depth on how to use this and what to do. And she looked up at me and with tears in her eyes and she said, "This is the first time that I felt like I can be the parent I want to be." Now, I share Keiko's story with you. One, I've had that conversation 100 times, but more importantly, many of you are struggling to work from home. Many of you are struggling to homeschool your kids. You're struggling to figure out how to stay on track when you're on furlough. I would suggest to you this. Flip the script. Don't try to repeat what school does at school. You're not them. Can you imagine if you focused your homeschool, if you spoke with your working from home, if you focused your personal development while you're on furlough on how can I help my kids have more self-efficacy? What can I do to build greater psychological resilience? How can I work on my ratios so that I can get to 4 to 1 with my spouse? I can get to 3 to 1 with my kids. First time I did this, just so you know, when I discovered, because this was an accidental discovery, I literally was sitting down reading these books and this just came to me. And I said, I've got to do this with my kids. And I went home, told my wife, she just smiled, didn't say anything, she's wise, and she let me self-discover. First day, 5 negative to 1 positive when I was trying. At the end of the first week, I barely made it to 1 to 1. But at the end of about 8 months of really hard practice, I consistently could stay at 3 or 4 to 1, positive to negative ratio. And I have used and taught this for about 15 years throughout all of my work as we go through. So challenge for today, make a choice. Where are you going to focus on trying to move your ratio, and how can you expand it from your children to your spouse and then finally to your business? I'm going to include some links in the bottom of this video with a PDF with some of this information on it, as well as some places you can go to get these resources and the books that I referred to. Till then, focus, and no matter how bad you are right now, no matter where you're starting, you may not be a great homeschooler yet, but you can and will be. Focus on your ratios. Thank you.